Welcome to the lABLEd podcast, a show about disability, illness and difference. I'm Lucy and that's Alice.
Hi everyone.
And that's Lola.
So much more than what you see. We all live our lives differently. Kaleidoscope identity. And this is who I'm meant to be. I'm just labelled me. I'm just labelled me.
Hi everybody and welcome back to another episode of the lABLEd podcast. Today we have got Kerry, who's come on to have a talk to us about her disability and her identity as the toilet queen. Kerry, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hello ladies, thank you for having me. I'm Kerry. Most people might know me as obviously the toilet queen. And by campaigning for changing places. I have a rare form of muscular dystrophy called FHL1 gene mutation. So just call me a superhero.
I was going to say that rolls off the tongue nicely, doesn't it?
It does, doesn't it? That's catchy, that, isn't it?
For people out there who don't know much about muscular dystrophy and things like that, can you tell us a little bit about your sort of experience of disability, how it impacts you, the things you kind of find difficult?
Yeah, I mean, I've gone from being able-bodied to being disabled. So I've kind of experienced both worlds. And I think that's probably when you have something stripped away from you, it can be quite mentally torturing. And I think, that was half of, my downfall at the beginning is the struggle of knowing that I was going to lose the ability to move my arms, to walk, simple things like that. And I've grown up with muscular dystrophy because my mum has muscular dystrophy. So I watched her raise two children while never complaining. I think that's probably why I don't complain, is because she never complained about any of the struggles that she had when she was losing the mobility to drive and walk. And, raising two children is never easy. So having that disability as well and running a house, and it was quite, I know it's quite inspiring to watch my mum, and I think the strength that she had, and that's kind of what I've taken with me, is the strength that she's had. So I don't generally complain about anything unless it's obviously the fact that I can't use toilets.
Yeah, then you will complain. No,
Yeah.
but I don't see it as complaining. Can I just give a bit of context to our listeners? So me and Kerry know each other from my work. So Kerry, she's part of the team of volunteers at the company where I work, and is basically I get her to write all sorts of content about toilets and many other access issues because when I use a public toilet or toilet in general, I can't hold myself up on my 2 feet. I have to hold on to something, so somebody has to be with me. I don't have to get out on the floor and roll around on the floor to pull my everything back on and up, up and down again. So to me, going to the toilet is quite, it's quite easy for me because that's the way we've done it. But it was only when I met you, Kerry, I realised, oh my God, of course there's people out there that can't stand on their own 2 feet and use the toilet so efficiently and quickly. And you do have to lie on the floor. And when I was telling Alice about changing places toilets, and it's to give people a bit more dignity, so they didn't have to roll around on dirty public toilet floors. Alice went, oh my God, because she had, I don't think you'd realise.
I hadn't crossed up, I use accessible toilets because I had my guide dog with me, and we wouldn't both fit in a stall, basically. And I spend most of my time going, oh no, that's disgusting, don't lick the horrible public toilet floor.
Yeah.
So then the concept, there are people having to because of the inefficiency of a toilet sort of setup, that they don't have the opportunity to go, oh no, actually I'm not going to let the dog lick the floor, I've got to lie on the floor. It is that absolute lack of dignity.
It's heartbreaking to think that there are people out there, carers and care providers that are, they're being forced to lay their children, their loved ones, or their boss on the floor just to change them because there isn't an adequate. And I've always said that a standard disabled toilet, or as they call it, inverted brackets, accessible disabled toilet now, is outdated. So outdated that it just needs to be taken. Take it away. Just build a change in places, be over and done with. It's then an accessible toilet, and it's an inclusive toilet for everyone, for any age bracket, for any disability, and it's just a better standard of toilet. It's got more space because the standard size is 12 foot, and that's a large space. And when you go into a standard size one, you've got the toilet either shoved in the corner at the left-hand side or in the right-hand side. You've got a sink, a bin, a baby changing table. I mean, the amount of times I've been hit in the head by a baby changing table.
Me too.
A sink in the stomach. My husband lifting a bin over the top of my head. And it's like, really? And then all for him to turn around and go, babe, this really is not going to work. You're going to have to hold it. We've got to go home. And I shouldn't have to feel that way. Nobody should have to feel that way. Nobody should have to feel like they've got to hold it or not have fluids when they go out, or just say, okay, I can go meet my friends, but I can only be 2 hours because in 2 hours' time, I'm going to need to go to the toilet and I can't go anywhere.
I mean, that is a thing that I have to do regularly, sort of monitor my intake of fluids. I mean, and I don't have the same barriers as you do for using a toilet, but there are times where especially if I'm going on a flight, for instance, I will monitor my intake. I mean, that's a whole other subject altogether, isn't it, really? Toilets on a plane. But even just general, if I'm going somewhere new and I don't know what the situation for the toilet is like, I won't drink anything until I know, okay, there's got a toilet, or okay, yeah, I can get to that toilet, it's fine. There've been places where I've had my backside shoved on the toilet has been so tight that they've built like this funny wall system around the toilet, and I've had my bum on like a ledge, which is very annoying. You think, who went, oh yeah, let's stick a wall in there. And where they place that grab rails, you're like Spider-Man trying to get across the wall to use the toilet. I mean, it's got to be quite funny sometimes, because otherwise, if you didn't laugh, you'd cry.
There's been many times when I've gone to an accessible toilet, and I've kind of wheeled in, and then my husband's come in behind me and he's like, babe, I can't shut the door. And I was like, well, nobody needs to see my bare butt, do they? So what are we going to do?
Yeah.
I can remember going on a school trip to a museum when I was about 11ish, and them saying, does anybody need the toilet? Because we all used to have to go en masse because it was just ridiculous. And I said I could do with going, and they opened the disabled toilet, and there was a curtain in front of the door, and I was like, what's the curtain? Why is the curtain there? It only dawned on me that the reason why there was a curtain, you couldn't get me, my carer, and my chair in the toilet without having the toilet door open.
Oh, Jesus.
So the curtain went across while I was in the toilet, and I could hear my friends stood outside going, there was a queue forming, would you like to get out? And you think, I mean, and then that is like always one of my go-to stories when I'm talking about toilets, because I just think this manky curtain sort of dangling in the doorway. I mean, you just know that somebody had gone, oh crap, we've made this far too small.
Yeah,
I know what we'll do. Have a curtain.
Oh, I know. Bright spark idea. We'll grab a curtain. That'll be all right.
Yeah.
So for people out there who don't know what a changing places toilet is, Kerry, do you want to just tell us a little bit about the concept?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's a larger space, so it's more space. So like I said, it's 12 foot. You can get some of them that are 10 foot, but they prefer them to be 12 foot. So you have a toilet central to the wall, because let's face it, nobody transfers from the same side. So you've got, equal amounts of space either side of the toilet to make it easier for transfer, if that's what you do. You've got an adult size height adjustable changing bed. So some toilets have them fixed to the wall, and others have the movable bed, so you can pull it out, so you can have someone at either side and just put the brakes on that way. If you go to an all fangled dangled one, you will even find a shower.
Ooh.
If you go to Wimbledon, you will find a Cosimat toilet as well.
I was telling Alice about this in an earlier episode of the podcast, and I said, if anybody tries to take my toilet away from me, I would bite them and then cry. And Alice was like, what? But no, they are, what a revelation.
Yes, I mean, they're brilliant toilets, aren't they?
Oh,
I mean, mine comes with a remote control. It's great. I can sit on the toilet, I can do what I need to do, and then I can just do everything myself.
yeah.
It's great. The best toilet in the world.
It is one thing that has given me so much more independence that I never even thought possible. It's quite amazing, really.
And I think that's the thing that a lot of people who don't have disabilities, the nature of my disability, going to the toilet, generally I don't have the barriers that you guys have. There are issues from time to time, but it's just something that people don't think about and don't realize actually how much it's like Lucy says, it's that independence, to be an adult and be able to toilet yourself just because somebody's bothered to think more openly and provide you with what you need. It's a really straightforward thing, and actually is a real revolution, because everybody as an adult should be able to, we spend so much time and effort trying to teach our children to do it, to then, for an adult to find himself in the position of not being able to do it. And as you guys talked about, the huge limitations that puts on your kind of social life or your working life and your ability just to go out the house. I think it's something that lots of people don't think about at all.
No, it's something that you wouldn't expect. I don't expect everyone to understand, because not everybody has a friend that has a disability. Not everybody has a family member that's disabled. So I'm not expecting everyone to understand. But when, some of my friends don't even, until I started campaigning for changing places, I mean, they didn't even realize that I was going out with them. And, if I was out for 5-6 hours, they were constantly saying to me, are you okay? Do you want some water? And I'd say, no, I'm okay. And it wasn't till I actually started telling my story to the world that they came back to me and said, we didn't realize that you were only having 2 or 3 sips of water. It was because you couldn't go to the toilet. It just didn't dawn on them that that was what I was doing. It's not having those toilets. But I mean, these toilets are they're an up-to-date version of a standard disabled toilet, with a hoist. You've got a ceiling hoist, you've got height adjustable sinks. Like I said, you've got an adult size changing bed. So all of these are in place for whoever needs them. So if I go out with my PAs, they can't wait there like my husband does. So they would need to hoist me to take me to the toilet. My husband, on the other hand, he weight bears. So he stands me, he sits me down. That's great. So I've now got the two options of being able to not just go out with my husband, but if I want to go out on a girly afternoon, obviously not right now, but when we can go back out to the big wide world, I've got that opportunity to go out with my PAs instead of staying at home with my PAs. I can now just say, right, do you know what? Let's go out on a whim. I know I can go to the toilet. Fabulous.
Well, and it's just, if people have the the ability, if they have the tools and the sort of accessible points in place to be able to do that. You know, you hear a lot of disabled people talking about how they don't see people like them on TV. They don't see people like them out in the world. Well, that's because there's a bunch of people who aren't going out because they can't access toilets when they're out. So, you know, if that is your biggest barrier, you know, there are, and I know it's not everywhere, but there are a lot of places, particularly big public places like shopping centres and stuff like that, have worked to try and become more accessible. But the idea that actually just making these changes to a more accessible toilet could really open the place up to a load more people and just make life easier for people.
Yeah, no, it would. Yeah, absolutely. Because we are still human beings. You know, when you're a girl and you're a girly girl, you like to go shopping. Who doesn't love to go browsing through the shop? I love to go browsing through the shops, but I like to take my time doing that. But having a time limit to go and meet your friends or to go shopping or even to go food shopping, you know, when there's always that time when you go food shopping and you're hungry and you end up spending 4 hours before you even get to the end of the supermarket.
Yeah.
And then you're like, oh, I can just stop at the cafe. But if there's no accessible toilet for me to use, then I'm like, right, okay, quick in, let's go, let's do the list, let's get out.
What would you like to see? When do you think that's it? I can stop my campaigning with changing places. You know, is there a goal in your head where you can go, okay, I can sit back and go, I helped that. And where is the Changing Places campaign now? How much further do you think you've got to go?
There's still quite a way to go because there's still only 1,000. I think it's 1,200, maybe 1,108, something like that.
Yeah.
Available at the moment that are registered. The legislation's now changed when you have a new build. So if there's any new builds, the campaigning world for Changing Places moved heaven and earth, and you know, we all did such an amazing job to get the legislation changed, so that any new builds now, they have to have a Changing Places toilet. So that's half our job there is done. So we're not now having to rally round, you know, new places that are being built. It's just now targeting the places that are now built and need them. So cinemas, you know, restaurants, pubs, all those types of places, they still need workplaces. You know, there's still people that need to work that are disabled that need these toilets. I think until there's one in every place that needs one, that'll be when the campaign finishes.
Yeah.
So I don't know how far off that is, because the government did announce before at the beginning of the year that they were putting aside 30 million for people to go to them and say, we want to build a Changing Places. So that was, you know, amazing as well, which is, you know, a great achievement for everyone. And also hospitals, you know, hospitals need to have Changing Places, because you would think that the one place that would have one would be a hospital. You know, the place that you need to go to get treatment, to be able to go and see your specialist. But no, apparently it's not that case.
Unfortunately, I've seen in my sort of day job that, upsettingly, it is a lot of places like hospitals, GP surgeries and things like that, where actually a lot of people face the biggest access barriers. Is where you would expect people to be more aware of, you know, supporting people with cognitive differences and things like that. But it's where people can, and I'm a huge fan of the NHS, and I don't want, you know, I always feel as though I'm trying to make excuses for the behaviour of the few bad eggs within the NHS, and everybody's overworked and underpaid and all of those things. But you really think in 2020 that people should be a bit more able to sort of take a step back and go, well, what might this person need that's not immediately obvious to me?
Yeah.
I went for some kidney stone procedure a few years ago, and when I got onto the ward before they took me down to the sound machine that they put me under, if it hadn't been for my mom being with me, I don't know what they would have done, because they just were like, can you get onto the bed? I was like, well, I can't stand up. They were like, and my mom just went, I'll do it. But if my mom hadn't been there with me, you'd have gone, well, how are we going to do this then, sort of thing. And they were looking at me as if to say, well, can you give us any insight? So it always surprises me when I go into hospital and they're surprised by me. It's like, surprise!
It's weird, isn't it? Because I mean, whenever I've gone in and you try and explain to someone, and when I went last year, I went in because I had a little minor operation, but I had to go back in again. And I was sitting, the doctor came over to me in A&E, and he was like, right, okay, I need you to push yourself forward. I can't do that. I haven't got the strength. I've got muscular dystrophy. Right, okay, can you grab hold of the side rail and pull yourself up? I can't do that. I haven't got the muscle strength. And it's like the lights weren't quite switching on.
No, it's like on a dimmer switch.
Yeah. It's like, can you help? And he's like, oh, so you can't move yourself at all? Hey,
Yeah,
well,
give that man a washing machine.
where's Watson?
I once went to the what's it called, optometry A&E. A&E.
I hospital.
And and I went into the A&E because I was experiencing unusual flashing lights. I always get flashing lights, but these ones were new, and I didn't really think anything of it. And I rung my high street optician, and they just sort of went, we have to say any changes, we have to say go to the hospital, because if we don't, and your eye falls out, then we get sued. So I went to the hospital, and I can remember sitting in the triage bit of the IA&E, and there is a nurse standing in front of me going, follow my finger, and going like this. And I was like, I can't see your finger. And she was like, you can't see my finger. And I was like, no, like, this isn't, like, that's not unusual. I was like, I can never see your finger. I was like, can I just talk to a grown-up, please? Because I'm sure you're very good at your job, but I am not your standard walking in off the street person with an eye problem.
I like how you nearly gave her a heart attack there. You can't see my finger.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Oh my god, somebody call a doctor.
Yeah, quick. Yeah, it always amazes me how they're just surprised by us, like, hiya. Kerry, do you get much sort of like backlash from people when you go into somewhere new? Say you're going to like a new like chain of restaurants, and you put your case forward for, changing places is brilliant, and this is what it would really help the disabled community. Do you get much backlash from people going, we don't need that, we don't need that?
Some are quite polite about it and go down the we can't afford it right now
route,
or we haven't got the space. It's always we can't afford it or we haven't got the space. I received one email which I generally don't share when I've had a no, but this no that I got via an email from a well-known supermarket was
does it rhyme with Mesco?
No, it doesn't.
Yeah.
No, it doesn't. It's got green writing.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Work that out for yourselves, listeners.
Yeah. Yes. There's a booby prize for anyone that gets it. So I sent an email, put my case forward, and said, these are life-changing facilities. Have you heard of the Purple Pound? This would make life a lot easier for families, not just disabled people. And the email that I got back I had to read it 3 times to make sure I was reading it correctly, because I'd never received an email quite like it from such a major company as this one. So along the lines of, she said that they would never build a changing places toilet unless they were forced to build a changing places toilet.
I'm not shopping in that supermarket with green writing again.
Yeah, and I was like, I need to share this. I need to share it. I need to tag them, and I need to see if there was a response. And I responded to her, and I said, I can't believe that you've just sent this back. You know, your wording is just, it's disgusting. You know, all I'm asking for is a simple yes and no. And within half an hour of me sharing it to the world,
oh yeah,
I received a phone call. Hi, Kerry, it's such and such. I work for the CEO of the Green Writing. Very, very nearly. We would just like to apologise for the email that you received. And I was like, okay. So it's taken you half an hour. It didn't take long.
no,
Because so many people were commenting and saying how disgusted they were.
yeah,
But they were really seeing it because I tagged them in it. Because I thought, you know, you've got a right to respond.
yeah.
And I mean, 6 months down the line, they were still trying to sort out whether they were going to build one. And I was being fobbed off quite a lot. And in the end, it came back with that they were looking into it, but they wanted to trial them first to see whether they work.
How do you trial a changing places if you've not got one?
I don't know. I mean, maybe they.
And surely the evidence of the 1,200 odd toilets that are being successfully used across the country already is evidence of them being working. But
and surely as well, you know, I know there are supermarkets out there, particularly the one that rhymes with Mesco, who
Mesco's have been very, very good.
yes, they have. They have. Whenever I see a post, I'm like, yes, can you get one near me, please? So they have been very good and very supportive. I know that. So surely other supermarkets must look to Mesco's.
You can't not notice how many that Mesco's have actually built.
Yeah,
you know, we're very close to announcing the 100th one, and that's more than any actually other one that anyone has built. I mean, they're literally topping the list of, you know, and there's 4 supermarkets that have none.
wow.
Do you get much backlash from people who just don't understand disability? I mean, like being a disabled woman on social media is always a minefield. You know, you get shouted at for all sorts of stuff, never mind being in a wheelchair. Do you ever get backlash from people who just don't understand and you think, there by the grace of God go I, really?
Yeah, I mean, I've done quite a lot of press, and they've put the video out with the press that I've done. And when you sit back and look at some of the comments that people write, I mean, some of the private comments, you know, are quite nasty and hurtful. I've just learned to kind of ignore it because they are trolls. They've got nothing better to do. They don't understand. And if they're not willing to send me a message to say, you know, how does it work? Why do you need one? Please explain to me so I understand and I have the knowledge to move forward. I'm not interested. You know, I'm not going to. I mean, there was one person that wrote on there that there would need to be, that everyone would need to have personal insurance to use a changing places toilet, and they would need to be trained. And it's like, my staff are already trained.
Yeah.
So why would I need to have, they've already got insurance when they come out with me. They've already been trained before they even work with me. My husband, you know, he only needs pot training.
Well,
so
exactly. If it's your husband, they're family, aren't they? And you would.
Yeah, it's family. Yeah.
Yeah. So you know, they're not going to go, can you just sign this before I do this? Because otherwise I'm going to sue you. Because otherwise it's going to make Christmas dinner very awkward, isn't it?
Well, and you know, and if you're not having a paid carer or support worker or a knowledgeable family member out there to help you to access those toilets, then I mean, I think I'd be slightly more concerned about why you're asking random strangers in the supermarket to help you use the toilet over whether you're concerned about personal insurance.
They're going down the aisles going, now, does she look like she would help you?
or propositioning some man down the wine aisle. Bring that bottle with you, we'll have a party. I mean, it's just ridiculous, isn't it? I mean, we were talking about this earlier in the week, weren't we, Alice, about people who are campaigning on certain issues. So I am on social media, but I wouldn't really necessarily call myself a campaigner for things, because I haven't really aligned myself to like a particular cause. What I do is I'm a very active and out there disabled person who I think being a positive role model on social media, just talking about your life in general, is one thing, but being a campaigner and having that armor on constantly to go, do you know what, it doesn't bother me, I'm going to carry on, how on earth do you find the energy? Because this is what gets me, the energy just to keep going. I don't think I would be. I think I would be crying in a corner if somebody said, specifically like personal comments. I was on the BBC website at Christmas last year, and the comments on that, they warned me. Of course they did. And I said, I'm a disabled woman on the social media. It's fine. But even reading it, sometimes you think you know nothing about me, and yet you're spouting such vile words. How on earth?
Opinion, don't they?
Yeah.
And that's the thing, is they have such a big opinion of something that they don't actually know anything about.
Yeah.
And it's that, isn't it, that they're not willing to understand, they're not willing to learn, but they are very, very willing to tell us how they feel.
Yeah.
And sometimes it is a case of taking a step back and saying, do you know what, you don't understand, you're not willing to understand. And my favourite saying is, you can't argue with stupid.
Very true.
What is the point in me? I can argue back with the best of people, and I could take it to the next level if I wanted to, and I wanted to argue back. But I sometimes sit there and think, really? That's the egg that got through, and that's the sperm that got through.
So much for natural selection.
Yeah, if that's the way you want to go, crack on. I'm really not that bothered. I'm going to carry on. Sometimes it can be very hurtful. And I do have to take a step back every now and then, because it can build up when it's so constant. It's daily that. And I did start to find myself stepping on tiptoes and worried about whether I was going to, upset the disabled world or, upset the non-disabled world. And then one day I just kind of woke up and gone, do you know what? It's my life.
Yeah.
It's my life. It's everybody else's life. Why should we be the ones that are left behind just because you don't want to understand?
I think that's one of the things that I'm quite aware of being on social media, and like is that I feel, because my experience of disability is very limited to my experience of disability, I really worry that I'm going to say something that is going to be offensive or is not understanding of people's different needs, people with different needs. Like the changing places toilet idea, something never crossed my mind, because it's just not something I've ever found myself in a position to need to think about. And now that I know about it, I'm going to be much more aware and sort of and see it and see when it's not there. But I think I worry about sticking my neck out sometimes and just having people go, particularly knowledgeable people, sort of bombard you and say, you're wrong. And so I think it takes a lot of guts, even when you feel like you know what you're campaigning about, you're knowledgeable and you want to take a stand on something that you're really passionate about. When you're already, as you say, feeling like you're sort of tiptoeing around and standing on eggshells, and even those people who you thought were your allies are coming out against you sometimes. It's, you know, it's hard to not just retreat and go, you know, is my mental health and my personal experience right here, right now, more important to me than the wider issue that I'm campaigning for?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you do sometimes need to, your mental health is always, you're already battling having a disability. So you're battling yourself every single day with a disability because of the barriers that you face. And then when you go and add another barrier that you're campaigning for, and the backlash that you get from that sometimes of, oh, they're so expensive. Oh, look, you know, the disabled community are draining the funds again.
Yeah.
It does become quite mentally draining. And yeah, sometimes you do have to take a step back and say, okay, you know, 24 hours out, a week out, and then I'll come back strong. I generally only need 24 hours where I phone my friends up and go, you'll never guess what someone's wrote. And then my friends are like, you're doing amazing. It's great. Don't listen to them. They don't understand. And then that's it. I'm fine.
Yeah. It's having that release, isn't it? That outlet to go, this is oh, look at this knobheads kind of thing.
Yes. And it is that, like I say, I look at some people and say, really? That's the egg that got through, and and you want to come for me because of what exactly?
And there is this thing I always think, this underlying thing of me wanting to say, when somebody's criticising me, I mean, don't get me wrong, I don't always get things right, and I know that. And when I know that I've not got things right, and I have seriously offended somebody, and they've got a good point, I will hold my hands up and say, actually, I didn't think of it like that. There are just people out there who will argue for argue's sake, and you think you could at any moment become like me, like Kerry, like Alice. Something could happen and you could lose everything at the click of a fingers, and then you would have to rely on changing places, on mobility aids, on mobility animals. It's not. Disability is the one minority group that anybody can fall into at any time, and God forbid, thereby the grace of God go I. Do you know what I mean? That's what I always want to say, but I think I can't say that's too harsh, like, because it's almost like,
I mean, I don't know though, because I mean, it may make them sit down and think about it, because there is that saying, isn't there? That I mean, I've heard a few times people say, you know, they're 3 accidents away, or they're 3, you know, something away from, you know, being disabled themselves.
yeah.
And sometimes it is that comment that makes people actually say, oh, okay, yeah, well, you are, you know, you are right in what you're saying. And nobody wants to go out and, you know, offend anybody.
No.
But at some stage, we're going to offend someone at some stage, and they're going to offend us. It's just, it seems to be we're always willing to say, okay, we apologize, we've offended you. But, you know, nobody else seems to want to come forward and say to us when they've offended us, I'm sorry, you know, I'm sorry we said what we said, we now understand. They'll just go, well, yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
And move on to the next thing.
Yeah. The next person in the line.
Yeah.
It is, I mean, I don't get very easily offended. I don't know about you, Kerry.
No, really.
Yeah, there is always like a line to me of, okay, that's offensive. All right, so just hush your noise now, because that's offensive, and I'm going to start kick off. And I get like a rhino face. That I give them a look, and it's like, this is your warning shot. One more, and you've had it. Do you find in your experiences that people are willing to go, I'm really sorry, or do you find that sometimes people are scared of saying anything because you might get offended? I mean, because I do, either one way or the other.
Yeah, they won't say anything. They'll retreat. They'll just go, and then change the subject. There'll never be oh, okay, I'm sorry. It will just be, I mean, you know, there's a time and a place to say things, and then there's a time not to say things. And it seems to be that we're already struggling with the general public in the non-disabled world to not talk to us. You know, they already struggle to strike up a conversation with us because they don't know how to speak to us. They don't see us as being red-blooded human beings. They see the disability, and that's all they see. They see the wheelchair, they see the guide dog, they see the white cane, they see the dark glasses, they see anything but the human that's sitting or standing in front of them.
Yeah.
And they struggle, and I don't understand how they struggle. And it's like when you go out, I mean, how many people can turn around and say that they've left their house because they're just going shopping, or they're just meeting their friends, or they're going to the cinema, or out to dinner on a date night, and somebody always turns around and goes, "Oh, it's so lovely to see you out." It's like, really?
Yeah.
That's the first word that came out of your mouth. You turned around and said, "Oh, where are you going? What are you up to?"
It's the sympathetic head tilt and the overly big grin that gets me. Like, hello, how are you?
Well, the shouting.
Yeah,
it's
the
the
shouting.
"Hi, how are you?"
Yeah.
I'd be better if you stopped shouting at me.
Please.
Yes, what's that about?
I know it's and when you tell, do you often find as well that when you tell people these stories, they don't able-bodied, non-disabled people these stories, like of something somebody said to you when you're in the pub or whatever, they don't believe you.
Yeah.
Do you ever get that? Because I get that quite a lot, and you think, why are you questioning me? I know what I saw. I know what I heard. Why don't you just believe me? Or like they won't believe. Do you ever get it as well when you're doing the Changing Places campaign and then people don't believe that it's that much of a trauma to go to the toilet for you? Do you ever come across that?
Well, I tend to kind of get from that. A lot of people come back with, well, they're shutting public toilets down, so it's hard for us as well. Okay, totally. I totally understand where you're coming from. It's such a struggle for you to find a McDonald's and go to the toilet, for you to go to anywhere that has a standard toilet. It's really hard for you because they're shutting the public toilets down.
Yeah, I would like those people to stop a second and go, okay, well, imagine if they shut every single toilet that was outside your house.
Yeah.
Now imagine what it's like going out on not even a day out. Imagine what it's like going out for a couple hours, knowing that, because sometimes, you suddenly go, oh, I shouldn't have had that extra glass of water, and you've only got 10 minutes before you're going to be sort of, oh, I really need to wee. And if your house is half an hour away from your city centre, what are you supposed to do? And it's just that, this isn't a question of going, there are less places for us to go. This is, it's more dire than that. There are sometimes no places. There may be one place which is shared by 150 people, and if you're caught short, then
absolutely, yeah. And I have openly admitted I have been caught short many times before, many times when we've gone out and the toilet's just not been suitable enough, and I've held and we're so far away from home that we've walked to the city centre, which is probably about 35 minutes away from my house, and we've literally got to the door and I just can't hold it anymore.
No.
There's just it's that state of you're scared when you go out if there's not an accessible toilet, that if you drink too much you're either going to have an accident or you're going to make yourself have a water infection. And it's those things, kidney stones, all those types of things that you're medically putting yourself in danger of, and dehydration. My hair's fallen out before because I've been so dehydrated. I've had accidents, and it's not embarrassing is the word, but it's also your dignity's gone.
Yeah.
Because you're so scared of people knowing, and it's like someone looks at you like, oh my God, they know. I just want to get out of here. They know, and your anxiety takes over, and the embarrassment takes over, that you just want to leave wherever it is. You just want to go back to your safe haven, which is your home, where you know you've got a toilet. But that's no way to live. It's no way to live where you're like, right, okay, I can't go to the toilet out, so I'm staying at home. That's all I'm doing. I'm staying at home. I'm not going to live my life. Why should we be put in that position of not having the right to live our life how we choose to live our life? Because at the moment, our life is being chose for us because there isn't an accessible toilet.
Do you think that by the sort of sheer nature of the thing that you're talking about, you know, it's toilets, do you think that there are people who are, because it's toilets, less kind of willing to talk about it, or even disabled people who don't want to kind of jump on that campaign because they don't want to be known as the toilet queen? They don't want to have that association of being the person who's always talking about toilets.
Yeah, basically, do you come across disabled people who don't want to talk about the fact that they go to the toilet like everybody else?
I haven't. They privately message me, or if I've wrote a post and I've posted it on the disability sites, and if it's private, they tend to kind of talk about it. They say they don't want to join the campaign because they don't know how to, and I've given little bits of advice about that, or they haven't got the time. I think they do shy away from the conversation.
Is that because it's to do with toilets and going to the toilet?
I think it's to do with toilets. I think it's to do with dignity. I think the more I've spoken about it, though, the more they found it very easy to talk about. I've noticed there are a few people now that were very much like, I don't want to talk about it. I don't want anyone to know about it. I don't, it's embarrassing to me to talk about toilets. Now, where they see me telling my story over and over again, and I do probably get a little bit more explicit the more I talk about it, they find it probably more comfortable and go, okay, you're really brave to talk about everything when it comes to going to the toilet. And I say, but no one's going to understand unless I tell my story.
Yeah.
And I always say your story is your story, and it's the most powerful tool that you have to tell anyone. So your story is always going to be that most powerful tool to explain to someone, and for someone to understand and acknowledge that there is a problem, because otherwise how are they going to know? Unless you actually openly tell someone, I struggle to go to the toilet because X, Y, and Z, they're never going to know. No one's ever going to understand. And I'm happy to share my story and say that I'm not the only one out there, but we're always put in that bracket. And I think that's where it comes from, is the fact is society sees us as either a burden or to be pitied on, that nobody wants to talk about it because they don't want to have that burden put on them. They don't want to have that pity look. And it's that, isn't it, that I find people struggle with.
I think there's a fear that because for a lot of people, disability is about physical bodily difference. And I think that there's probably a reluctance amongst a lot of people to kind of go to draw more attention to their physical self and their physical differences when they're already having that drawn, that attention drawn to them daily anyway, to then have to turn around and say, well, one of the things that's supposed to be private, this is also different, this is also hard, this is another thing about my body that is different. And I think that's probably quite difficult for people. I'm not hugely comfortable talking about that sort of thing. I could ask me about periods. I could talk about periods for days, but I do get uncomfortable talking about toilets and that sort of thing. It's just the sort of my white middle class upbringing.
I think as well, being a disabled person, I don't know if you feel like this, Kerry, but particularly when you rely on people to help sort of put you together and look after you, I don't know whether you feel like this, but because we have to rely on other people and tell them what we need in most specific, explicit ways sometimes, that your kind of filter of what you're comfortable about talking about gets lost, because you think, well, I have to tell you this, because if I don't tell you this, I am going to be suffering, or I'm going to be in desperate need of something, and because I can't communicate it very well, if I don't, if I can't communicate it very well, I'm not going to be comfortable and I'm not going to enjoy myself. So therefore, like in our house, nothing's a secret, unfortunately. My mother tells everybody everything, whether I like it or not. It's like, and I look at her sometimes, I think, could you really not have phrased that slightly better? Maybe, or maybe just kept your mouth shut. Because I'm sure the postman does not need to know X, Y, Z. But I do think that because we rely on other people to sort of care for us, we do lose that sense of, let's not talk about that.
Yeah, no, yeah, see, whereas in my house, my husband's very different. When I open my mouth, he stands there and cringes. And he's like, do you really need to tell people that? Do you really? Did you have to really say that? And he goes into such a soapbox tangent on, did I really have to tell people that? And I'm like, yes, I did. Because how is it? Yeah, but nobody needs to know that. Yes, but they do, because they need to understand. Yes, but I understand. That's all that needs to.
I think we're sort of conditioned, actually, with a lot of what Lucy was saying about you have that discomfort, and so you need people to know about it. I think actually a lot of people are conditioned to be more to it's better to be physically uncomfortable than to make other people feel sort of awkward and emotionally uncomfortable and ashamed. That's what we're kind of conditioned for, so it is doubly difficult to be not only sitting, putting out there and going, I'm different because I'm disabled and I have difficulty with going to the toilet, but it's also difficult to receive that, I think, because our society is so wary and put off by talking about toileting and scatological things, that we all go, oh no, don't talk about that, no, and we would rather we'd rather think Lucy's really uncomfortable while sitting in her own mess. I'd rather than me having to talk about what she needs.
Yeah.
No, because you're literally, they are your arms and your legs, aren't they? So if you need, even if you're in your, wheelchair, you're still having to rely on them to do certain things. I mean, I've got big boobs, and I will openly admit I lose things down those boobs.
Me too.
I've lost a cherry tomato down there before.
Oh, God.
M&M's down mine. M&M's.
You see, that is the beauty of having a guide dog. You don't lose food because it gets found very quickly, and you're like, oh, I didn't know there was food there. Now there's just a slobbery patch.
And where you're saying you go to a whole new level. Both my PAs, I will openly admit, they give me a tea towel and I say, seriously, what are you trying to say? And they're like, we know, exactly what we're trying to say right now. There's been many times when they've had to fish things out from my boobs, and it is you're relying on them, and it is, you feel comfortable. If you weren't comfortable, you wouldn't do it.
No.
But I must admit, I don't know about you two, but sometimes I do like to say things to different people that know me, that have only just met me, and when they give you that face, you say something quite personal, and their face is like horrified. Yeah, it's like that horrified face of, oh my God, she just said that. And I kind of relish slightly on the fact is that I've maybe embarrassed them and said something just because I can.
That what you were saying about kind of embarrassing and shocking people, I think that can be quite powerful, because it also, people are going to fucking remember that. you know, like they're gonna walk away, their tail between their legs, a little bit hunched, like, oh, I'm really embarrassed about that. I certainly would.
Yeah, and they're going to say, I met this really crazy blonde bird in a wheelchair, and you will never guess what she said to me. You will never ever guess what she said to me. And yet, you know, that story's going to filter through so many people. It's great.
I think it upsets their equilibrium a bit, isn't it? They're like, oh, they're not supposed to do that. I'm very uncomfortable with it.
Yeah, I think people expect your personality to be disabled, not like that you can be disabled and also have a personality. Like, disability is not a personality trait.
No,
it is a sort of an existence that is reflected in your kind of your experience of the world and your barriers. It's not actually anything to do with your personality.
Yeah,
I often think that disability as a colour is quite a grey word. Like, it's a bit of a don't expect too much. It's just there. Like, it's a colour for colour's sake kind of thing. Whereas, like, I am anything but grey. Do you know what I mean? I want sparkles and all sorts everywhere.
yeah,
Please.
yes. Yeah, give me sparkles and bright colours any day, and I'm game.
Yeah, I mean, you know, they're staring at me anyway. Why not give them something to stare at? That's always my ethos, you know. It's but I think people in general get quite uneasy about it.
Yeah,
you know, they don't.
Yeah, it's that thing again, isn't it? They just don't know how to strike up a conversation with us. It's either they go down the tilting the head in the pity, or the we're going to avoid talking to you completely and speak to somebody else. So if I'm out with my PAs, or my husband, all three of them kind of turn around and go, my husband says, my wife can talk. And then my PAs are just like, she can talk, you know. And they're like, okay. And I'm like, hi, down here.
I can remember being at the BBC in Birmingham. I was having a very stressful day. Things were getting on top of me a little bit. And my colleague said to me, come on, let's go and have a cup of coffee. Just have a minute away from like a screen. Go and have a cup of coffee. And the regular woman who worked in the canteen doing the teas and coffees wasn't there. She was on holiday. And my colleague was walking in front of me, and he stood by the side of me. And he said, 2 coffees, please. And she looked at my colleague and said, does she take sugar? And I kind of looked at my colleague, and my colleague looked at me, and I was having a bad day. And I thought, do you know what? I've had enough of this. So I just tilted my head. And he went, ask yourself. And I tilted my head to one side and just went, like this woman. And this woman went, and he goes, that's no sugar.
And it's not fair on the person that obviously it does go out to, because they're the ones that gets it, because you've had so much. You just kind of, you feel sorry for, I do kind of sometimes feel sorry for them after I've done it and say, look, I'm really sorry. Or I'll just be like, yeah, I've said it too late. It's done.
I was having a really bad day. But there are, like you say, when you go to when you go to weddings and you are put on a table with people you've never met before, and they don't know about you. Those sorts of situations, you think, all right, I'm going to have to go like on the A game with the Lucy Wood presentation of this evening of, yes, I'm in a chair, but it's all right. Pass me the mashed potato. Like, you like have to gear yourself up and go, okay, no, it's fine. It's fine. Everything's fine. You can ask the stupid questions. Go on, because everybody wants to.
But aren't you sometimes just a bit sick of, like, I'm sick of telling the same stories. Like, I love my guide dog. She is wonderful. But there are sometimes days where I'm just like, somebody is going to ask me how old she is or how long I've had her, and I'm going to have to tell you the whole story. Yeah. And I just can't be asked. And I just kind of want to go, no, she's not a guide dog. She's a vicious attack dog. She's wearing a harness so that I can hold her back because she's trained to go straight for the ball.
I wonder what you're going to say then. Like,
if you do that, we need video footage.
Yeah, I sometimes think I'm not in the mood for this today, but then you can't necessarily just switch it on and off.
I feel like I want to start carrying around like a card that I can just hand to people and be like, this is my story. I don't really want to talk about it today, but you know, another time, this is where you can find me.
These are my frequently asked questions.
Yeah.
I suppose it's an occupational hazard though when it comes to campaigning.
Yeah.
Because I have to tell my story every single time I campaign. So in every email, in every phone call, in every radio, TV, newspaper, it's my story's the only thing that I have to say. This is why we need. So I suppose in a way, as much as it's a constant repetitive, it's like being a broken record over and over again. It's an occupational hazard because if I didn't tell my story, people were like, so why do you need a change in places? I really don't know. I don't want to tell my story. You're just going to have to work it out for yourself.
I mean, that's the thing. If you turned up for Channel 5 News and when they went, so tell us about why you want this changes in the toilet, system. And you went, no. And thank you very much.
With that in mind, Kerry, why don't you tell us something that has nothing to do with changing places? What if you could talk about anything else? What would you want to talk about? What would you want people to know?
Something that nobody knows about me.
Mm-hmm.
Well, before I was on TV for campaign, can't believe I'm going to say this, but
I'm excited.
Before the world of campaigning and TV and radio and things like that, I was on the TV in my 20s.
Were you?
Yes, I was.
Is it going to be Crime Watch or something?
I mean, it might be a bit better than what I was on TV for. It was called Tenerife Uncovered.
Oh God!
Oh my God!
What? Tell me everything.
I may not have had my bum out. I may not have had my boobs out. I may have gone skinny dipping, and I may not have gone to a sex shop.
That's brilliant.
We're going on a night out, mate. I tell you.
We are finding that footage. That's what we're doing.
Oh my life! So what happened? Were you interviewed, or was it like a hidden camera job? What was it?
Well, we were interviewed because my two siblings were underage.
Oh God!
So there was a whole thing in the newspapers where I was followed to and from work.
You were in the newspapers?
Yeah, so I got a phone call from the head of Sky to ask if I'd had an encounter with one of the production team, which was false. I hadn't. I was like, well, if I was either very, very drunk, but no, it didn't happen. But yeah, there was a whole whirlwind because they were 15 and 16 and they had obviously lied about their age. I, on the other hand, was in my 20s. I didn't lie about my age.
Yes, right.
So, yeah, the whole series on that one episode was my parents were involved as well. So they interviewed my parents to make it, legal.
This is amazing. I mean, you're a dark horse, Kerry Thompson.
Yes, I am. I mean, that's what I've never lived with embarrassment and I've never lived in regret. No. I believe that if I'm going to regret it, I should never do it. So everything that I've done from the days of when I was, running around drinking and, running a pub and staying in lock-ins and, some of the stories I could tell you from them days, they're good. But that's a conversation that nobody else needs to hear.
Do you think that attitude comes from the knowledge that you had muscular dystrophy and you saw your mum's experience of muscular dystrophy and you thought, I might only have a limited amount of time to run around like a mad person?
Probably, yes. But I think I was so in denial of that. I knew from the age of 18 that there was something wrong. but I put it to the back of my head and I just carried on with life.
Right.
So I went out, I did the clubbing, I worked stupid hours, which you do when you're in the pub trade. And it wasn't until it got drastically bad where I was falling more at work, and work were noticing that I was struggling that little bit more, where they sent me to the company doctor, and they said, we need to kind of look at what's going to happen and whether we can insure you, because you are falling a lot more. So it was a case of, giving up work or being put behind a desk. And the whole of my life I'd worked with the general public. Behind the bar was me. That was my identity at the time. So I did find it very hard transitioning from not having that identity anymore and then finding a new identity. But I think, yes, where I watched my mum, she was my hockey teacher when I was at primary school. And, we would go skiing and I would watch her do all of that. And she never ever complained, ever. And, I've spoken to her recently and said, did you ever feel like you needed to sit me and my brother down and say, we knew she had muscular dystrophy, but we didn't know how it affected her.
Right.
And I didn't know whether she'd sheltered us from that for a reason or whether she just didn't feel the need to explain to us. And she said that she didn't feel the need to explain to us because she wanted us, it just didn't cross her mind to sit us down.
No.
And it was maybe because there was no guarantee when my mum was diagnosed that it would ever be passed on, because she was told for many years that it wouldn't be passed on. Whereas the more that muscular dystrophy came out and the more knowledge they got about muscular dystrophy, that it does, it can go down through generations, and it did. Both myself and my brother have muscular dystrophy. My brother's younger than me, and it's hit him worse, where he's got a trachea, he's peg fed, he's completely in bed, he doesn't move from his bed, whereas I've got a very different life. I've left home, I've got my own home, I'm married, I've had a very different life to what my brother has had. And I think my mum takes a lot from that. And my brother's very sarcastic. And there was one time I sent him a message saying, hey, how are you? What are you up to? And he said, oh, I read your blog. It was really good. You're definitely a better disabled person than I am.
I mean, you said that you found it very difficult to sort of come to terms with the fact that, your condition would deteriorate and things. What really was the turning point of you sort of accepting, okay, this is where we're at and this is what will happen? Or, are you still coming to terms with it?
No, I think I've come to terms with it now. It took a long time to find my identity, because I'd worked for so long. I mean, I'd been working since the age of 12, and I'd done the odd jobs here and there. And when I hit 23, 24, I didn't have a job anymore. I couldn't work. There was nobody around to guide me to say, well, you can actually work, but you need to do something different. So for many years, I kind of cocooned myself. I lived in a house that wasn't, adaptable for me, and, it wasn't accessible enough for me to be able to live an independent life. Plus, obviously, coming to terms with my disability as well, it was hard mentally and physically hard for me to kind of grasp what was going on. Losing the ability to walk, losing the ability to even do washing up and scratch your own nose. When you lose that ability, as much as scratching your own nose to some people is, well, that's nothing, why are you worried about that? It's having that independence. You're having to then rely and say, excuse me, can you scratch my nose, please? No, not there. No, left, right, left.
Yeah.
So And it's handing all of that over, and we grow up being more and more independent. And that's how, from the moment we're born, we're learning to crawl, we're learning to walk, we're learning to do all of these things independently. And that's how we grow up, being more and more independent. And then all of a sudden, with a click of your fingers, that independence is gone. And it's nothing that you've done. It's just because you've got a disease that's eating away, making your muscles weaker and weaker and weaker, that you have to learn to change your mindset. And for a very long time, I mean, I've been through countless therapy where they've said, stop watering other people's, flowers. Think about yourself and think about how you, sorry.
Have you got a cat in the background?
Yeah, she's like looking at me right now going, I'm going to walk across you. Any second now. Going, no, come here. Come here. No, you have to. It took a while. I mean, I was on antidepressants for probably about a year. And 2 years previous to that, I was in very denial. And my husband was very worried because when he met me, I was still walking, I was still doing things, I was cooking, I was cleaning. We were in I hate to say a normal relationship, but we were in that kind of relationship where we were getting to know each other. Then all of a sudden, our relationship changed. I needed him more. And I never asked him to step in and say, when I was tired, can you stand me so I can go to bed? Can you help me lift my arm? Can you do this? He stepped in and did that. And I think having him around and kind of gearing me, he has a tendency to kind of say, here she comes.
Hello.
He always has the tendency to say, man up. Whenever something happens or when I lose the ability or I get frustrated, he looks at me and he just says, man up, you've got this.
Yeah.
And I think it was just one day I woke up and I was like, what am I doing? I've got this. I can do this. I can still be independent. I can still do what I need to do. I'm just going to have to take the long route about things. And I think it was that. It was just a switch in my head. All of a sudden just went. And having, I think, my brother and my mum in a worse situation than what I am helped, because I was crying over spilt milk when they've got far more to be, upset about. And my brother very rarely, tells anybody how he feels. My mum gets on with it. And there was me sitting there going, I'm on antidepressants. I don't know what to do with my life. I'm losing the ability to do this, to do that. And I think, where my husband was very much, think about, your mum, think about your brother. Your life isn't that bad. And as much as it was probably hard to hear it from an able-bodied person, it was still very true, because he knew me. He knew that I was better than what I was being. And it was just getting me to that point of saying, okay, do you know what? You are 100% right. Let's get it done. And it's probably been I've probably grown. My nan actually turned around to me and said, you've grown into a lovely young lady in the last couple of years. You seem to have found your voice.
Yeah. It's that is the thing, isn't it? I think a lot like your husband's sort of saying, it's all right, we've got, you can do this. Having my parents around me who are so positive, we never ever focused on what I couldn't do as a child. My sister and me were treated it. My sister's able-bodied, non-disabled. And so we were treated exactly the same. There was no special treatment because Lucy can't walk. If I didn't go to a wacky warehouse, Sophie didn't go to wacky warehouse. It's that kind of level of nobody gets treated any differently. But I think as well, again, like with what Kerry said about my situation, my cerebral palsy isn't as bad as what it could be. I can still communicate. I can still live a certain level of independence. It's not all that bad. Do you know what I mean? So there is a case of suck it up. And I'm not saying it's easy all of the time, and I'm not saying I don't get cross, because I do. But at the same time, I'm grateful for where I am. Do you know? I've lost so many school friends who were younger than I am now, and every birthday comes around, and I think I'm bloody glad I'm still here. Do you know what I mean? I'm bloody glad. So I'm still here, so I'll do their living for them, and I think that gives you a unique perspective on life, because that also lowers the I'm not going to do that because it's I'm not going to do that because it's scary, or I'd still get scared, but there is a level of, well, you're only here once, kind of thing. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. And I kind of, if I can do it, I'll do it. If I can't, I can't.
Yeah.
And there are certain things I miss, and I think when I went through my dark patch, it was because I was grieving the life that I missed.
Yes.
And it was trying to work out the new life that I needed to adapt to. And instead of doing that, I was still grieving. I was missing, walking. I was missing being able to, hold my arms up and hug someone. I was missing cooking. It's the silly little things that, I kind of sit here sometimes and go, oh, I kind of miss doing that. And then it's fine. I'm fine now. Whereas before it was, oh my God, I can't do this anymore.
I think it's a journey that a lot of people with disabilities, whether it's, an acquired disability, a disability that sort of strikes you midway through your life, or a deteriorating disability, or something you've had, from the day you were born. I think a lot of people go through that journey of having to of grieving what was or what could have been, and then also kind of getting to that place of going, where you talked about it could be worse. There are people who have more problems, more barriers, more difficulties than I do, and finding a kind of a middle ground of going, well, yes, I have these difficulties, which comes from the kind of the accepting what has lost or what could have been. But also there is an element of, I think, not being afraid, because you do recognize what you can do. And it's that. And some people find that from, comparing what they are able to do against the difficulties and experiences of others. And for me personally, it was just about going, instead of going, I'm still grieving that I can't do this. I used to be able to do this because my sight is deteriorating. It's something I will continue to lose probably over my lifetime. It is difficult to kind of to go, I used to be able to do this, or I can do this now. What if I'm not going to be able to do it later? It becomes very hard to, or it's almost about living in the moment and being able to go, well, I can do this now, and this is the life I have now, and trying to make the most of it. And I think all the things that you're both saying are different things that anybody who is listening to this and is in that position of going, I'm in a really dark place, I can't do this anymore, or I want to be able to do this and I can't, or just the fear of having a disease that deteriorates, a condition that changes, and not knowing what tomorrow will bring. You guys are both giving some really sort of nice insights into going, well, look around you and reflect on what else is going on in the world. And whether you're saying, well, I could have it worse, so I'm just going to suck it up, or whether you're saying, I'm going to live for the people that aren't here anymore. I think it's it's some really powerful messages.
And it's okay to go through those moments as well, and that's what people need to remember, that it's okay to reach out and ask someone that is either been in the same situation as they are at that time, or that has been through it and come through the other side. It's okay to kind of reach out. And I think that's the problem, isn't it? Is that some people find it so hard that they feel like they're the only person. And you do. When you're going through that, you feel like you're the only one in the world that's going through that one thing. But in hindsight, we've all been through it. You know, we've all been through that dark patch of coming to terms with something or other when it comes to being disabled, or, you know, like the transition from walking to wheels. You know, that was hard, but it was also very, I think I wouldn't be the person that I am now if it wasn't for every single process that I'd been through, and watching other people out there. You know, up until 3-4 years ago, I didn't really know any other disabled person out there. Now you know, the disabled community is such a tight-knit community. We don't all know each other. You know, we're not in a Facebook that we automatically get, oh, she's disabled, Facebook through the post.
Yeah, you're not got lights on your head that only we can see.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's as soon as one of us needs help, we all rally around.
Yeah.
And we all give that level of support. And I think that's what's great about our community, is the fact is that we are all there for each other, and we are all willing to share our story. If somebody says, please help me, I'm going through this situation, I've just been, you know, diagnosed with X, Y, and Z, you know, how did you go through things?
I also think it's really important just to kind of flag for anybody who is listening that we also know that for some people it's not something that you ever really come to terms with. You know, for me, because I don't know what's going to happen in the future with my sight, it is kind of a changing beast. So there is an ongoing element of grieving, and an ongoing element of, you know, every day or every week or whatever it is, you have to kind of refocus and readjust and go, nope, I can still do this, and that is okay. That never being, you know, living the rest of your life as a person with a disability and never being happy about it, and never feeling as though you've accepted it, is also okay. But you just need to make sure that you're kind of caring for yourself and caring for the other people within your community at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Kerry, you blog as part of the MD bloggers crew, don't you? So that's other people who've got muscular dystrophy, is that right?
Yes, there's 5 of us, and we've all got different types of muscular dystrophy. And, you know, I think it's great that we've all become friends through the same, you know, we're all bloggers. It was originally started by 4 of us, all 4 females. And then we brought the lovely Ross into it. And he just kind of, he gives a different level of what we can give. You know, he's the cheeky chappy that
I'm definitely conscious that we're a slightly woman-heavy podcast so far. So I do think it is important to get that male voice in the disabled community.
Ross, if you're listening to this, give us a call.
Definitely. He would be absolutely amazing to get on for sure, because he just has me in stitches all the time. Yeah. And
I can confirm, I know Ross, and he honestly, when we found him as part of our volunteer network, I was like, this man is gold. Can I come and move in with you, please, Ross? No, I think he would definitely be a good voice to speak to.
Yeah.
But so you obviously find great comfort in talking to people who are bloggers and who've got the same sort of condition. And I would imagine it's a very tight support network, is it, when you're really struggling or finding low periods?
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's. I mean, I started blogging solely because I needed to voice, you know, how I was feeling inside. Yeah. It was kind of like a free therapy session for me, and then it grew from there. And you know, I met, you know, different bloggers that were doing different things for, you know, in the disability world, in, you know, the non-disability world. So it grew from that, and I was receiving messages when I was writing down how I was feeling and how I was coping with things, and how I transitioned from walking to wheels. And when people were emailing me or putting comments on there saying, oh my god, this has helped me so much, my blog very much changed. It then wasn't for me, it was then to, if I can help one person out there that's going through the same situation as me, then I would be happy. That would mean the world to me. And when I receive messages to say, thank you very much for writing what you've written, and there's all different contexts on there too, the feeling of abandonment from my father to like I've said, changing places and struggling with toilets, to tips on how to deal with anxiety. And I think that sharing any story that you have when it comes to anything is a great thing, and it will help at least one person.
It's just more evidence that, disability isn't your personality. It's not all of who you are. It's, you've got a blog that's about, as you say, a lot of different complex issues. And one of them is disability, and one of them is about how your disability sort of intersects and interacts with the rest of the world. But you also have a wealth of other feelings and experiences.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the things it's probably the coolest thing about stuff like blogs and vlogs and podcasts, is that it gives people the opportunity to see a more rounded version of difference and outlooks. Whereas, we have been really stuck with those very one-sided representations of disability and difference for such a long time.
I haven't got muscular dystrophy, Kerry, but can I join your crew anyway, please? Because I think everybody needs a Kerry Thompson in their life.
Oh, thanks.
Oh, bless you.
Aww.
I didn't dare to say that.
And do you know what? There's obviously, being married, I took my husband's name. And when obviously all of this started off, if you ask my husband, when there's ever anything in the newspapers or on the TV, and he's standing in front of me right now, kind of dancing away, because he will constantly turn around and say, look, Thompson. Look, there's my wife.
There's my name.
There's my wife. Look how amazing she is. She's doing a fantastic job. There's the name Thompson, and that's all because of him. And it's that. It's like, you carry on putting my name out there, baby.
I wasn't going to call him out on his slightly sexist man up term because,
I mean, he struggles now. If you ask him, I'll say, how do you get through a day? And he will turn around and say, I've got you.
Oh.
And the sweetest thing, I just think, seriously.
I think if you asked my husband how does he get through a day, he'd probably say, I've got the dog. All right, Kerry, thank you. This has been a really great chat. I think we've kind of covered a lot of really interesting things. Do you want to take the opportunity to sort of plug where we can find the MD Bloggers crew and where we can find you and stuff like that?
Yeah, absolutely. You can find the MD Bloggers crew on Twitter. You can also find me on Twitter and Facebook. My blog is called My Life Kerry's Way. You will find me on Instagram as well, on My Life Kerry's Way. Come give me a follow. Come say hi. Share your stories with me. I'm, happy to meet everyone and anyone.
And where can we find the Changing Places toilet campaign?
You can find that online. That's on Twitter. Give them a big shout out, because the campaigners do such a tiresome job that they've been doing it some have been doing it far longer than I have, and sometimes they could do with a good old shout out, and it would be lovely for them to see a good old shout out as well. I think
we will definitely
do that. We'll put all the podcast description, we'll put all the details of Changing Places toilets for this episode, so you can find it all there.
Brilliant. All right. Well, thank you ever so much,
Thank
Kerry.
you so much for your time, Kerry. It's lovely to speak to
Thank
you.
you for having me. It's been absolutely amazing.
Thanks for listening to the lABLEd podcast. If you like the show, please rate, review, and subscribe. You can follow us on social media at lABLEd podcast.
Our thanks go to our editor, Adam Hall, our music composer, Maisie Crunden, and our graphic designer, Sarah Coley.
We'll see you next time.